Okay, so today on the schedule, we have, as you can see, the cardiac cycle. And I'll have a paper to hand out for you here shortly. It's not going to take that long. I just typically look at what's at the end of the week. I look, okay, cardiac cycle, how long is it going to take to get through that? It's not going to take 2 days. So what that means is you'll have class time today and tomorrow to work on those papers. And then don't forget the first page. I want to say it's on page 3 of your handout is where those vocabulary terms are. That will be on Wednesday. And then Thursday, yes, it's up for debate whether you 4 will be here or not. Okay. What's your inclination about Thursday? Okay. Is that right? 1, 2, 3? Just 3. Okay. I don't know why. You could be the manager. No? Yeah, days get kind of long. Yeah, I would be led to believe that the weather's maybe not going to cooperate if you believe the weather forecast. And we'll see. It's definitely going to be windy. I think they can certainly predict that. But I think according to the weather person, weatherman, weatherwoman, whichever, might say that it's going to be moved out of here by really early Thursday morning, and then the wind will pick up. Okay. So having these models in front of you, do you believe that is to your benefit as we talk about these, or is it having just the textbook in front? Of course, that's just 2 dimensions, this way and then this way, but here you actually have it in 3 dimensions then. But regardless, what is one thing you can tell me about the human heart? Whether it's a structure, it's a vessel, a chamber, what?
4 chambers.
Okay, so it's got 4 chambers. Who are the senders? Sends blood away.
Artery.
Okay, arteries do that, but what are the chambers in particular, though? Yeah, the ventricles do that, okay? So that means there has to be 2 types of systems because it's a double loop, okay? So pick a side, left or right? Right side. So when blood is exiting through what vessel and what circuit when you say the right ventricle? Where's it going? It's going to the lungs. So what circuit is that? That's the pulmonary circuit. And when that right ventricle contracts, okay, what valve is that going through? Means moon. Yep, the pulmonary semilunar valve. And then to really, really be specific, where is it, that pulmonary artery? Is it this one? This one? That one? Google. Is it this one? Yeah, it is this one. Okay, so then if that's the right side, which it is, then the left side goes through the aortic semilunar valve, okay? And then, no surprise, goes through the ascending aorta here. And I would be led to believe that you have numbers on there as well, because this you would refer to not just the aorta. Whether it's something that you are writing down as a diagnosis or it's something that you would observe, you have to know that terminology. Well, I don't think you have to know it, but to be successful to move on, you would have to know that terminology, okay? So that's why even on here, there are 3 portions of this aorta. So when it's going up, what does that mean? That's the ascending aorta. And then at the very top, it's the aortic arch. And then going down, it would be opposite. It would be the descending, okay? And you do have to know what's branching off of here. On the right side, you have what's called that brachiocephalic trunk that splits into a subclavian and a common carotid, the right one. Then when you get to this side, this middle one, I believe, is the left common carotid, and then this is your left subclavian. That's one of the things, yes, you will have to know that, because that's terminology that you would have to be able to convey, whether it's something that you see or something that you write down to send that bit of information along. Okay, so that's enough of that for now. Okay, now if there is a blockage in a coronary artery, what type of surgery might that be? You might not remove the clot. Well, eventually a surgeon probably would. But to get around that, what did we call that? It could be double bypass, a triple, quadruple bypass, which means you're taking structures and just moving around that clot. Okay. So the cardiac cycle, when we're talking about these actions. And typically how I visualize this to maybe help myself out, trying to keep systole and distally separate, would be as follows. I'll let you write this content down first. There's a specific structure in your heart. There's a specific structure in your heart that's called the pacemaker. Okay? So it's a node. Is it the atrioventricular node or the sinoatrial node? Go ahead and look at I would be led to believe it's on page 3. So look at those two. What's the pacemaker? SA node or AV node? At least I think it's on there. And if it's not on page 3, maybe it's on the next page. Maybe it's not. Okay. Well, I got a paper up here too. I can maybe take a peek. Okay. Okay, so on the top of page 4, you have the atrioventricular node, specialized mass of cardiac muscle fibers that transmits impulses to the AV bundle. Okay, and then, okay, it doesn't have the SA node on here, like led to believe. Okay. Okay, the natural pacemaker of the heart is called the sinoatrial node or SA node. And what that means is when you saw that in that video, okay, there was just one cell in the entire heart that was working on its own rhythm. And when it does that, it interferes with the natural pacemaker or the SA node. So what helps me to keep this separate is if the pacemaker is in the atria, which it is, the SA node, well then keep systole and atria together, and then when that happens, you know that the atria are contracting. Keep the S and A together. That way you know that in systole, the atria are contracting, and then in distally, the ventricles are contracting. Okay? So I don't know if that helps you or not, because what happens is the heart works most efficiently when those chambers get filled all the way. Okay? And to me, I've always looked at it this way. Say, for instance, you've got if this is a chamber of the heart, this water bottle, okay, if you want the maximum pressure and maximum efficiency, what happens if this is about 3/4 full and then contracts? Okay, you're not going to have much pressure in there because it's going all over in the insides of the chamber. So then what happens if this is filled up all the way? It just pumps more efficiently that way, and the pacemaker determines that. Okay, so it's a natural rhythm that would say, okay, now you need to fire. Now you need to fire. So it gets information from the brain, but what specifically in the brain does that? It's part of the brain stem. If you remember from last semester, you had the cerebral cortex, okay, the cerebellum, the diencephalonon, and at the base of the brain was this structure. It was the brain stem. Yeah, the medulla oblongata does that. That keeps sending signals down to your SA node, and where this causes this to contract then. Okay, so in systole, the atria are contracting, and then in distally, the ventricles are contracting. Okay. Have you ever had the opportunity to listen to someone else's heart? Have you ever done that before? Okay, so then typically, can you explain what it actually sounds like? Yep. Oh, exactly. I mean, that's what the author goes on to talk about as well. Okay, so what's happening then, okay, when you say thump, it's really not that far off, okay? When using a stethoscope, okay, this is systole, this is distally, because the lub is when the atria are contracting. The dup is when the ventricles are contracting. So then it's just a continual process. Sounds like dub dub, dub dub, dub dub, dub dub. That's probably enough of that. So then, again, when systole takes place, these are contracting. Those are relaxing. Then they flip-flop. Then these are relaxing, and then those are contracting. So when I say these and those, okay, systole, the atria are contracting, the ventricles are relaxing. Okay, then when it's in distally, okay, then your ventricles are contracting while your atria are relaxing. And again, what's happening is, remember, this is one-way blood flow that goes through here, and it's a little more difficult to see, but what happens is when this right atria contracts, one-way blood flow goes into this right ventricle. But what valve is this? Between the right atria and the right ventricle. Why are you right when you say tricuspid? Because it has an R in it. That's right. So what happens is as those valves open up, okay, it's not like this, okay, it's actually like this. So when those open up, the atria contracts in systole, okay? Then when distally happens, those valves slam shut, okay? They open and they slam shut. And what you see happening here is these little fibers here that actually attach to the top of this tricuspid valve keeps that from prolapsing. Now, a prolapse is a vague term. I mean, that can happen in humans' intestines, that can happen in equine, not only just their intestines, but also their bowels. It happens in cattle, it happens in probably sheep, and it happens in pigs. So a prolapse just means where something is pushed out of place. And have you ever noticed that in a horse where their large bowels are outside of them? I don't know if that's, okay. Have you ever heard of that before? Your dad probably has. It happens in cattle. So you've seen that in cattle. And what we're talking about, I should have just said cattle, not horses. But what happens is their large bowel is actually on the outside of their body, isn't it? And it's not just a little bit like this. There might be about that much sticking out. Okay? Besides, you call the vet probably. Okay? Well, right. But a treatment for that prolapse, again, that intestines is pushed out of where it's not supposed to be. I know it's probably a little easier to treat in pigs, and we've done that before, where it's just a plastic tube, and what you do is you inject, well, you push that into the large bowel, okay? So picture this is where the exterior opening for their large bowel, okay? And then, I don't really have anything big enough, you just have to use your imagination. But if this is sticking out, you take this plastic tube, you push that into their bowel, and then you take a really, really tight rubber band and you clamp that on there. And somehow, some way, I don't know, they just heal themselves, providing you leave it alone. And eventually what happens, you just pull that tube out, and chances are their intestines have healed themselves. That's what we mean by a prolapse. It's something that's pushed beyond normal. So if this valve prolapses, okay, either this tricuspid or this bicuspid on this side, and if you don't like bicuspid, you can always say mitral valve, okay? If that prolapses, rather than looking like this, maybe it looks like that. Maybe that's sticking up just a little bit. And then when that tries to do this, blood is leaking backwards, which is obviously not, it's going to interfere with the blood pressure. And I don't know what would happen beyond that, but I would be led to believe that's probably not good for that patient. And I'm not going to go into any of the specifics because I don't want to lead you or steer you in the wrong direction. Okay. And then if the ventricles are contracting, is that systole or distally? You're right, it is distally. The ventricles are contracting, and when the ventricles are contracting, what is relaxing? The atria, that's right. Okay, so with somewhat of a busy week, I know, did the administration try to get you another track meet today?
Yeah.
That you're aware?
Yeah, there were.
That fell through. They were probably full. So then tomorrow, yes, it doesn't affect this class, but then again, I know, it all depends upon the weather, I know. So I'm going under the presumption that since that's on the schedule, that you're not going to be here. I don't know why I keep looking back there. Okay, that should our other student be here that's gone to FCCLA, that, okay, under the presumption that you three aren't going to be here. But I believe you are gone tomorrow. Okay, so then to a golf meet then. But anyway, that's where we'll stop for today. I'm going to hand this paper out, and as you can see, it is due on the 21st, which would be a week from this Thursday. All right, that's all I have. We'll catch up to you next time.